Imagine waking up to find the world in total darkness. No sun, no stars, just impenetrable darkness. Does it seem impossible? Yet, an ancient biblical prophecy suggests that this event could come true. Are we about to experience the infamous 3 days of darkness? Let's discover the shocking truth together. Before proceeding, I ask you all to subscribe and comment with your opinion, or simply with an amen. Let's get back to us. One of the most disturbing events in the Bible is the 9th plague that struck Egypt, described in the book of Exodus, 10:21-29. This passage tells of a darkness so thick that it could be physically felt, a shadow that enveloped the entire land for 3 days. But why did God choose darkness as one of the plagues? The answer lies in its powerful symbolism. In the Bible, darkness often represents divine judgment and abandonment. It is a sign of God's disapproval, a withdrawal of His presence. Think about it. Have you ever experienced complete darkness? It is disorienting, frightening, and can make you feel completely alone. Now, imagine an entire nation plunged into such darkness for days on end. This is what the Egyptians experienced. But this darkness was not simply an ordinary nightfall. The Bible describes it as a darkness that could be touched, a supernatural phenomenon that defied human explanation. This extraordinary event was not only a punishment, but also a direct challenge to one of Egypt's most powerful deities, Ra, the sun god. The 3-day darkness not only deprived the Egyptians of light, but also threw their daily life into chaos. Businesses came to a complete halt, trade was paralyzed, and terror spread among the population. The animals themselves may have reacted with panic and confusion, increasing the sense of fear and despair. This event also caused a deep religious crisis. People began to doubt the power of their gods, especially Ra, whose dominion over the sun seemed completely nullified. Some scholars speculate that the darkness could have been caused by a natural phenomenon, such as a massive sandstorm, a volcanic eruption, or a rare eclipse. However, the biblical description speaks of a darkness so dense that it prevented any movement. The Egyptians did not see one another, and for 3 days no one rose from his place. Exodus 10:23. This suggests that this was an event of divine origin, beyond the laws of nature. Another aspect to consider is its theological significance. The darkness was one of the last plagues, a sign that the liberation of the Israelites was now near. God was showing His power not only to punish, but also to distinguish His people from their oppressors. While Egypt was plunged into darkness, the Israelites still had light in their homes, a clear symbol of divine protection. The Egyptians worshipped Ra as their supreme deity, the god of light and creation. By plunging Egypt into darkness, God was demonstrating Ra's complete impotence. This gesture was an irrefutable affirmation of His sovereignty over all creation and the other gods. In a polytheistic context, in which every aspect of nature was governed by a deity, the God of Israel declared His absolute authority. The darkness imposed by God was not only a demonstration of power, but also a devastating blow to Egyptian religion. Ra was the supreme God, the one who gave life and order to the world through His light. The total absence of the sun for 3 days was a humiliation for the Egyptian pantheon and called into question their faith. The priests of Ra, accustomed to officiating daily rituals to ensure the rising of the sun, found themselves helpless in the face of an event they could neither control nor explain. Furthermore, the sun was a symbol of the power of the pharaoh himself, who was considered the son of Ra. The darkness was therefore a direct attack on his authority, demonstrating that the true ruler of the world was Yahweh, the God of the Israelites. This plague was a clear message. There is no earthly or divine power that can resist the will of God. Another remarkable aspect of this plague is that while Egypt was enveloped in darkness, the Israelites enjoyed light in their homes. This stark distinction was a clear sign of God's favor toward His people, a reminder that God protects those who have faith in Him, even in the darkest of times. This contrast further reinforced the message of separation between those who belonged to the true God and those who rejected Him. Despite the power of this divine demonstration, Pharaoh remained stubborn. He attempted to negotiate, offering to let the Israelites go, but without their livestock. This resistance, despite repeated proofs of divine power, highlights a tragic human tendency: the hardening of the heart against God's warnings. The hardening of Pharaoh's heart is a recurring theme in the book of Exodus. Despite devastating plagues that struck his kingdom, he repeatedly refused to let the Israelites go, seeking instead to maintain control. This obstinacy was not only the fruit of his personal pride, but also a reflection of the political and religious power that he represented. As a ruler, the Pharaoh was considered an incarnate deity, the son of Ra, and recognizing the superiority of the God of Israel would have meant not only a personal, but also an ideological defeat. How many times, like Pharaoh, do we try to compromise with God? We say, "Lord, I will do this, but I do not want to give up that." However, God does not desire partial obedience, but our whole heart. Pharaoh, in his obstinacy, chose to ignore the obvious signs of divine power, and this led to even greater ruin. The hardening of the heart does not happen suddenly, but is the result of a continuous resistance to the voice of God. Each time we ignore His guidance, our hearts become a little harder until we are unable to perceive the truth. In contrast to Pharaoh's stubbornness, Moses demonstrated unwavering faith, refusing to give in. His determination is an inspiring example of how we should trust God completely, even in the face of adversity. Moses did not compromise, but remained steadfast in his mission, knowing that God would keep His promises. This episode teaches us the importance of obedience and trust in God, even when circumstances seem adverse. If darkness represents judgment and separation from God, then light symbolizes His presence and truth. This biblical episode invites us to reflect on our role in the modern world. How can we be light in the darkness? Being light means living according to God's principles, bringing love and hope where there is despair. In an age where evil seems to prevail, believers are called to bear witness with their actions and words. Jesus Himself said, "You are the light of the world," Matthew 5:14, encouraging us to shine even in the darkest moments. This message is more relevant than ever. As the world faces uncertainty and crisis, those who live by faith can provide a steady point of reference. Praying, standing firm in the faith, and sharing the truth are practical ways to counter the spiritual darkness that surrounds us. Ultimately, the lesson of the 3 days of darkness is clear. No matter how deep the darkness, God's light always triumphs. It is up to us to choose whether to remain in the darkness or to be bearers of light.